It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That's T&N, not the network, but T&N. And that's Slave to the Empire, one of the original tracks off the new release, for the collaboration of Jeff Pilson, George Lynch, and Wild Mick Brown, with Jeff Pilson on lead vocal. And we want to welcome back to the Classic Metal Show our good friend, Jeff Pilson. Welcome back, Jeff.
Yay. Well, thanks, guys. It's great to be here.
All right, Jeff. Well, Jeff, you know, I
thought you'd forgotten about me and didn't love me anymore.
No, that's not true. Actually, I've been wanting to get you on the show for the last couple of years, since the last time you were on the show when you did a takeover show with Benedictum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been about 4 years.
Okay.
So
That's not as bad as I thought. I thought it was longer. I forgot about the Benedictum.
Right. Yeah, you took over the show with Benedictum, and George actually made a cameo during your Classic Metal Show takeover, and that was very cool. And you know, it's one of my favorite things in the Classic Metal Show archives after 17 years. So that's like in the top 10 things that has happened for the show. But
wow,
nevertheless, you and your former Dokken bandmates have gotten back together, so to speak, and did this tooth and nail thing, which, can I say tooth and nail without getting sued?
Well, I don't know. I know I can't.
But, you know, after, and I'm going to revert back to the fact that you and George worked together on your Pilson, Lynch Pilson release back in 2003, Jeff. Can you believe it's already been almost 9 years since you guys did that?
Very, very scary.
9 years.
I know. Very scary.
Yeah. But I remember back then when I had you on the show and you had just released that, which is, you know, I really dig that CD a lot. And you were doing a lot of press for that, and I remember when your wife was on. Is she still doing that online? Is that KNAC? Is she still doing that?
No, she hasn't done that in several years.
Well, you guys actually were on her shift, I guess, and performed some.
I do remember that.
You guys performed some of the songs from that, and you know, it was a you know, a pretty good recording of you guys doing that, and you were already talking then that, well, this is just the first installment. We're going to do this again. Did you think it would be 9 years?
Probably not. So let's just hope when I say that we're going to do another record next year that it doesn't turn into 9 years.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, Jeff, obviously you've done a lot of press. I've, you know, picked up on a few of the audio releases of some of the interviews that you've done over the last couple of months to promote this thing, and without, you know, trying to sound cliche, what was the impetus behind doing this? I mean, at what point did you guys think to yourself, all right, we're not doing this Dokken reunion right now, if ever. Why don't we get together, play some new material, get Brian Tichy on the drums on the original. Let's get the three of us together, and let's re-record the Dokken classics. At what point was that a good idea?
Well, you know, I mean, I wish it was that well thought out. You make it sound like we actually, you know, thought about it, but it sort of fell into place more than anything. What happened is when the Dokken Union didn't happen, George called me up and asked me if I wanted to be involved in writing a Lynch Mob record with him. Because we had actually gotten together when there was talk of a Dokken reunion, and we threw some ideas back and forth, and we could tell, wow, you know, the chemistry is there, and, you know, we wanted to work together. So we started working on this Lynch Mob record, basically wrote an album's worth of stuff, got Brian Tichy to play drums on all the music, and then basically for whatever reason, basically Oni didn't quite feel that the material was very Lynch Mob-like, and he probably got a point there, so, you know, no biggie. So we thought, well, we'll shelve this for a while. And it was Brian Tichy's idea, who said, look, why don't you get Wild Mick, have him come in, record some Dokken songs, call it Tooth and Nail, which of course we've changed to T&N, and take it from there. And when Brian said that, it all kind of it was a light bulb moment for me. It was like, yeah, I totally see that. That absolutely makes sense. That's a great idea. What an honest representation of what we are, and so we did it. It's that simple.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna be brutally honest right here, Jeff, and this is no reflection on you or anything else, but I have a whole shelf of tribute records. You know, it's been a big deal over the last 6 to 8 years of doing tribute records, and probably one of the leaders in tribute records is like Cleopatra or Paris Records or whatever. What is the interest in doing tribute records where, you know, all these artists in a certain genre or a certain, I don't know what you want to call, time span, choose to cover each other's material?
I think it starts with the fact that people are aware record sales aren't what they were. So we're looking for other ways to attract listeners. And, you know, it's no question people, you know, a lot of the people that are fans of our music, you know, are fans because of the old music. So instead of running from that or hiding from that, I say embrace it.
Well, I agree. I mean, I've been doing this for 17 years, and you know how big of a dedicated fan I am of, you know, Dokken or any one of the bands in that genre.
Right.
You know, so I embrace it as well. So go ahead.
Yeah. So to me, the tribute thing, I mean, there's a right and a wrong way to do it, and you know, but I mean, a lot of them are very, very good, and so our feeling was we do kind of look in a sense it is a bit of a tribute to the legacy. I mean, you know, everyone hates to call themselves a tribute band. I don't. I mean, I think what it is we're just trying to do an honest representation of what we are, which is we're very interested in doing new music. George and I love to write together. That's that is the impetus for this whole thing, is our creative partnership and the ability to have, you know, that creative outlet. But we also know if we would ever go play live, we would have to do Dokken music, and we willingly do so. So why not take it now, give it some of our, you know, some of the 25 years of afterthoughts that we've all had, you know, give it a little fresh coat of paint and go out there and have fun with it. And that's what we did. That's another reason why we thought getting, you know, guest singers would be a good idea, you know, because I do think it should be. I think in order to do this correctly, we have to pay respect to the legacy. And I think if I would have sung the whole thing, it would have been like us trying to compete with Dokken.
Right.
And I'm not interested in doing that.
Sure.
In paying tribute to it, you know, me singing one song of the Dokken material and getting guest singers is in a sense a tribute, and that's what I think I think that's more of an honest thing that we felt rather than, like I say, I didn't want to have anybody get the impression we're trying to compete with our own legacy. That's ridiculous.
Right. I agree. Well, I have some old demos of you demoing, you know, Dokken songs from back in 1985 from Under Lock and Key, you know, and those have been circulating around the internet for umpteen years. So it's obvious that you have the ability to be, you know, be a front man or, you know, scream out some vocals there when you were demoing those songs.
Yeah.
So your vocal ability is not in question at all. But I guess my question is when the originals are available, at what point does somebody go, you know what, I would love to hear Sebastian Bach sing Alone Again, or Doug Pinnick sing, you know, Tooth and Nail, or whatever at that point?
Well, you know what, I don't know how to answer your question about somebody else. I can only answer it for myself. For me, and I'm a writer on these tunes, it was a tremendous thrill to hear those guys singing it, especially the way each of them did it. They all paid respect to the Dokken legacy, but gave it their own twist, which is a real trick. It's not an easy thing to accomplish, and I think they all did it. And, you know, for me, when I hear Sebastian Bach doing Alone Again, I'm hearing a Skid Row song, and it's just, to me, it's fascinating that it can have that effect. But I also think it's a testament to good writing and to a good song. and to a great treatment by Sebastian as a singer. I mean, let's face it, he really, really delivered on that. So, as I say, I can only explain from my own, sense of appreciation for it, but I love hearing it. It gives me a huge thrill. So, there you go.
Sure, absolutely. Well, like I said, Jeff, this is no reflection on you or your abilities or anything. I'm just curious because, maybe I'm jaded from being in this, quote unquote business for as long as I have, but because being a casual fan anymore that's been long gone for me personally. So when I hear that, I'm a little bit more jaded and go, what are these guys doing and why are they doing this? Mm-hmm. So that's just my viewpoint.
I think I explained myself.
Sure you did. Absolutely. And I appreciate your honesty. Now, the original stuff, I have more appreciation for that only because of the collaboration that you have with George. And again, I said that the Jeff Pilson or the Pilson Lynch release from 9 years ago, very solid record, and I think a lot of people were looking forward to the second edition of that. So the fact that you guys write together well and still perform together well, and as you said earlier, the chemistry is still there. That's what I'm more interested in. At what were you kind of going for as far as a direction for the music was concerned, or was there any forethought in that at all?
Well, yeah, there was. Honestly, because it started off as a Lynch Mob project, it kind of went through a lot of metamorphoses. Once it became apparent that it was going to be our stuff, and again, our first thought was to be another Lynch Pilson record. That was the thought. So one of the things about Lynch Pilson is we weren't afraid to get out there, we weren't afraid to take some chances, and we weren't afraid to, like I say, experiment a little bit. So the music was a bit out there in spots, and we were very happy with that. Then I think when we realized where it was going to end up, as far as the whole T&N concept, we started looking at it a little more like, okay, how do we make this make sense with the Dokken material? And so we kind of streamlined it for that, and like I say, the main goal was to have something that we creatively felt excited about. And once we got to that point, we thought, well, this is honest. This is what we're digging. This is what we're feeling. We didn't want it to be too far from Dokken, and yet we didn't want it to be exactly like Dokken. We wanted it to be, we wanted to, if we got inspired with something, we wanted to be able to go with it.
Right.
And that's what we did. We did even that to some extent on the Dokken material too. We had, moments where we stretched out, and that's what creative outlets are for, is to be able to stretch out and, expand your horizon a bit. The beauty of doing something like T&N is that we don't have to do it. We're not doing it for a living. It's not anything but the joy of doing it and the love of making the music. So you're getting pretty pure from the heart music from us without the boundaries that you have in a business environment, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So essentially, if there was any guide at all, it was what's going to get us off, and that's what we got.
Sure. Well, I noticed that, in a couple of the songs, kind of like Jesus Train and whatnot, you were kind of stretched out and went into a very blues direction, kind of like almost ZZ Top-ish in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, it was exactly. Did I hit that right?
Yeah. We felt no inhibitions about doing things like that, and that is what makes it joyful for us.
Right. Well, how much influence do you think your participation in Foreigner has had in this, or has it had any?
I think the main influence it's had is that, because I haven't had a chance to really write with Foreigner. I mean, I've done some work on that with the band, but very little, and not, I need to be doing that fairly often. So it felt like I had a need. I had a need for a creative outlet, and And so I'd say, if anything, it might have been part of the spark that made me want to do this with George so bad.
Right. Well, speaking of George and the fact that you worked with George and Mick on this release, do you personally foresee that there will be a Dokken reunion of the classic lineup at all?
Well, I would hesitate to rule it out, only because, here we are 30 years later still even talking about it. So I would really never want to completely rule it out. But having said that, I don't see where it could happen anytime too terribly soon, mostly because of scheduling.
Sure.
That was one of the beauties of T&N, is that because it's a labor of love, we do it in our spare time, basically. We do it in between all the stuff that we got going. And with Dokken, it would have to be more of a commitment, more of a, it would be a big time chunk. And because of my foreigner commitment, I'm probably going to be, the next couple of years are probably not going to afford me the ability to take that kind of time.
Right, absolutely.
So, we do have a goal of touring the next T&N record, and that's going to be tricky enough as it is. But a whole Dokken cycle, that would be probably very difficult to pull off. So I don't see it happening in the next couple of years, but you just never know.
well, would you enjoy something like that, though? I mean, is that something you would go, you know what, I would like to do this? Is that something that...
The Dokken thing?
Yeah.
Well, I do think that there's, in all of our hearts, at least to some extent, I know in Don and my heart, there's a feeling of unfinished business that we could, we still have that one more record to deliver. I think there's that feeling, because he and I have talked about that. So there's that. And the truth is, I'd have to enjoy it if I were going to do it, because I don't do things unless I do enjoy them anymore.
Well, that was kind of my point, that you wouldn't do it half-heartedly. But,
no.
If you were to lay awake at night and stare at the ceiling and go, you know what, there's a lot of things I could put my hands into today. I'm very fortunate to be a part of a legacy band like a Foreigner. I have my producing career. I've produced some very cool bands. I've done tribute records. I've done original records. If the Dokken thing were to ever come up again, is this something that Jeff Pilson would love to do?
I like I say, if it happened, I would have to. So, it's sort of hard to... You're asking me to predict what it would be like, and I can't.
Okay, well, that's fair. That's honest. If there's ever been one thing Dokken is, it's unpredictable. Well, that's a
But I would say musically, yes. Of course, I'd get behind it, and of course, I'd endorse it and work very hard and put my heart and soul into it. And if that were to ever happen, I'm sure that would be the case.
Right. Well,
we wouldn't do it for. It's not the same sort of business opportunity that it was even in the 90s when we got back together.
Right.
It's not even that anymore. So it would have to be for the love of doing it.
Sure. Well, as in anything that you do, you would definitely have to love doing it. Well, now, before we get into another topic, since I haven't spoken with you in so long, do you believe that the T&N thing will ever perform live?
I do, yes. I very much do. I don't know when, and I wish I could, give you dates, but I'd be guessing. But our plan is we're going to do another record next year. We already have 7 more Dokken tracks cut because we cut 12 when Mick came out. So the plan is to do another record next year and then to somehow, hell or high water, figure a way of getting on the road with it. So that's the only information I have right now, but I do think somehow we're going to pull it off.
Excellent. All right. Well, speaking of your current gig, Foreigner, recently I purchased the Led Zeppelin Celebration Day, which obviously was their reunion that they did back in 2007 at the O2 Arena, and you had the opportunity to be the opening act for that.
Yeah, we were.
That had to been an excellent experience for you, and I don't want to sound cliche by asking this, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and Chris is going to kill me when I use this terminology. What was it like opening for Zeppelin at the O2 Arena, and was it a big deal for you, or was it just another gig?
No, it was a very big deal, and I'll tell you why. It was great. I mean, for one thing, I wasn't expecting the audience to be as cool as they were. I was really imagining everybody just going, let's love one, I mean, because I might have been, So the audience was really cool. So our performance felt great. Our performance it felt special. It wasn't overly magical, but it was special. It was good. But then getting to watch that show, I mean, the thing is, the night was so much about Zeppelin, and it was actually cool. And they were incredible. They were just so there, and it was like a master class in how to be a great rock band. They were incredible. The way they listened to each other, worked off of one another. It was an experience I will never forget, one of the greatest concerts I've ever been to, and something I feel very grateful and honored to have been associated with.
Now, where did you view the show from?
There was a VIP section right off to the side of stage right. So not too far away. It was kind of a pleasant... Actually, at one point I was standing right next to Paul McCartney, which is really cool.
Wow, look at you. And I know you're a huge Beatles fan, too.
Yeah, in fact, he and I were rocking out at one point. We were both banging our heads together.
Wow, look at you. So not only did you get to open for a legendary band like Zeppelin and a one-off, but you also got to hang out with one of your heroes as well. Yeah.
Well, when I say hang out, there was no conversation going on. There was, it was during the song Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, and they were playing, and all of a sudden my wife and I were walking along, and my wife kind of grabs my hand, and I go, "What?" She goes, "Look." I go, "What?" She said, "Look." I looked, and there was Paul McCartney. So we just kind of stopped, and I was literally a foot and a half away from him, and he was just banging his head like crazy. He was just going up and down. He was going crazy, and it was he was doing it in sort of an infectious sort of way. So I kind of started doing it too. Then he looked over at me and gave me this big smile, like, "Here we are rocking together."
Right.
It was unbelievable. And you're right. For me, being such a big Beatle freak, that was a very special moment.
I could imagine.
Well, but you know what? It was real. It was real. He didn't know anybody was watching him. Where he was standing, he had bodyguards kind of around him, and he was kind of protected. So I don't think anybody really saw him, except for that we happened to be just right there. So it was very real. He was genuinely being a 12-year-old kid. It was amazing.
So what was the biggest event for you that evening? Seeing Zeppelin perform or actually seeing Paul McCartney?
I got to say the Zeppelin thing was bigger only because it was like it was almost like a spiritual music experience. When they broke into Kashmir, it was so, the goosebumps, the intensity, everything was just, it was freaky. It was really freaky. It was really, really a special night.
Well, I envy you, Jeff. Believe me, I do.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
That's excellent. All right, Jeff. Well, you obviously, we talked a little bit about Benedictum. You had an opportunity to work with them, and they're probably one of my favorite, quote unquote newer bands, even though they've been around for 6-8 years now. What is your thoughts on that band? Are you a big fan of them? I
love their music. I think Veronica's got one of the greatest voices out there. And Pete, the guitar player, he is so ridiculously good on the guitar. It's crazy. I love the way they write. I love their music. I love I think they are just absolutely incredible. I helped them with some pre-production. I'm not going to have the opportunity to produce their next record because of time, but we did get together and do some pre-production and worked on about 8 tunes. And I was so glad I got to work with them again because I love them to pieces and I love their music. And they're going to be great. I hope. In this day and age, it's so difficult for bands because you don't. It's hard to make money and all that kind of stuff. but I hope they are around for a long time because I just think that they deserve it. They are so the real thing, and I want to see them succeed in whatever level success is now. I'd love to see them get it because, like I say, they deserve it.
Sure. Well, you bring up an interesting subject there, Jeff, and I know I don't want to dominate all your time here, but the fact that you talk about, the levels of success, whatever that is in these days of music, especially in the quote unquote the hard rock or metal genre, what do you see going on out there? I mean, you obviously tour the world. You're part of like I said, a legacy act in Foreigner, and do you do your own thing? What do you see going on out there music wise where hard rock is concerned?
Well, I think one of the key things that I see is there's a lot of young people starting to pick up on it again. I'm seeing more young people at Foreigner shows, which I think partly what was responsible for that was things like Guitar Hero and Rock Band. I think that kind of helped with that. Glee, American Idol, stuff like that has all kind of brought this Rock of Ages. All that stuff has kind of made classic rock cool to a certain amount of young kids, which I think that's a key element. If something's going to survive, it's got to have its roots in the youth so that they can perpetuate it. You've got bands like, Avenged Sevenfold and a lot of those bands that aren't doing anything that radically different than what we were doing. They're putting their own spin on it. They have a more modern approach or whatever. But there is definitely an element of hard rock metal that is, being born in the new generation. So that's really good. The other interesting thing is that, we are sitting here talking about a Dokken reunion. And no, this is not Rolling Stone magazine or whatever, but the fact is, how lucky am I to be associated with a band that, 30 years into its career, somebody, maybe only a handful of people, but whatever it is, there's people that would love to see a reunion of it. And there's people that have loved the T&N record because of our association with Dokken. So, and, we have an opportunity to make a record like T&N because of Dokken. So, there's really something to be said for the longevity of what we've done and what many bands in our genre have done. And with that and the fact that youth are embracing it to whatever degree they are, if there can be more of that, if there can be a better business model for how to get this music out there, then I think hard rock and metal will survive as they always have and come up with something new, beautiful, and creative.
Absolutely. Well, again, I don't want to take up all your time here, Jeff, but being that, you're a veteran of the music business, we've talked about this on the Classic Metal Show before, and being that you had the opportunity to open up for one of the biggest quintessential hard rock bands in the history of music, Led Zeppelin, what do you think is going to happen when the arena acts are gone, be it AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath? These bands are in their 40 years now, and, there isn't going to be a lot of years left for these arena acts, and there's no new bands out there in the hard rock genre that can sell out an arena the way that an AC/DC or a Van Halen can. What do you think is going to happen when, time just basically takes those bands away from us?
Well, I think you're going to have, it may have to revert to a more underground status for a while. And I don't think that's necessarily so bad, because maybe in there will be the seeds that will get planted that will then sprout into something really cool. And maybe 20 years from now, there will be a lot of new classic rock bands that have long careers. Everything's cyclical, so I see that. I think the biggest problem right now is that the music business is so horrible and in such a state of flux or confusion that there isn't the medium to get this music out there. It's not a viable enough thing commercially to attract the major corporate entities, the major labels and whatnot. And it's not really youth-oriented enough yet that the internet can completely drive it. So it's kind of like a rock. It's a rock and a hard place. Hard rock is a rock and a hard place.
It is. It is.
So that's why I say I think a lot of it's going to have to do with newer bands getting their own version of this, but, taking the energy of metal and hard rock and, creating song structure around it that appeals to their generation. And then it has to grow from there. But what it's going to need is a business model to get it out there. And if it's not going to happen from the corporate entities, the major labels, who are dead anyways, in 5-10 years they won't exist anyways, then maybe the new medium, something through the internet, that'll be the opportunity for this to go mainstream again in its own way. And I think that will happen. I really think that will happen. I think that there's an energy about hard rock music that is going to resurface continually.
Right.
The fact that a Led Zeppelin record still sounds good 40 years later, what does that tell you? It tells you that there's something. I mean, we're now we're not getting all that far away from music being 100 years old, and then it's 150. Then all of a sudden it's Beethoven. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I think the sky's the limit. I really do. I do think people 100 years from now will know the song "Stairway to Heaven."
Sure.
And I think they will know "Highway to Hell."
Right.
I think it will somehow resurface, just like we know. I don't know what should we call "Oh Susanna, won't you talk for me?" Whatever. That's probably about 150 years old.
Sure.
So the fact that we know those songs, I think people will know that the classics 100 years from now.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Jeff, it's always a pleasure to have you here on the Classic Metal Show. I apologize that it's been so long.
Yeah, let's not let that happen, buddy.
We're always glad to have you on. I appreciate your honest input. Obviously I've heard some of your recent interviews on, with some, various outlets and whatever. And, again, this is no disrespect, but there's a lot of kiss-ass interviews going on out there. And I like your honest perspective, so I appreciate you for being as honest as you have been tonight. So
great. Well, yeah, always my way, I think.
So what's on the burner for Jeff Pilson right now? What's the latest?
Well, actually, I've been in the studio the last couple days with Kill Devil Hill, which is the band Vinny Appice and Rex Brown are in, and it's an amazing band with some great songs. We were originally going to be just doing a couple extra songs for a re-release, but it looks like what we're going to do is we're going to just start doing their second album. And in times between road trips the next couple months, we're going to plan it. We've got 4 songs that'll be done by next week, so we're we're a third of the way done there. So great music from a great band. I'm going to do probably a couple more songs for Adler. The Adler record is out now on iTunes, but we're going to do a couple more songs because they've written a couple of great ones. A lot of T&N stuff. George and I are going to be on Rockline next Wednesday, I believe. It's the 12th, I know. So I think that's Wednesday. So we're going to be on Rockline doing, a call-in thing there. So that'll be great. I'm doing a Starship record at the moment, which is pretty funny, but really coming out wonderful. And what else? I don't know if I'm missing anything. Oh, yeah, I'm going to sleep a little bit there.
Excellent. Well, Jeff, have you heard the latest Dokken release, Broken Bones?
I've only heard... I heard the song that they have the video for.
Empire?
I saw the video. Yes. And actually, Don sent me... they did a cover of a Jefferson Airplane song.
Right.
And Don actually sent it to me, so I've heard that.
Your thoughts?
My thoughts? Well, I thought the cover version of the Jefferson Airplane song was just beautiful. I mean, it's not what you think of as traditional Dokken by any means, but, I mean, Don sounds great, and I like it when he does that stuff. I mean, this is, again, it's not really part of the Dokken box necessarily, but I think it's part of Don's musical character, and I love it when he gets a chance to do that, because I think he's got some untapped areas that I think are great when he taps into them.
Sure.
The song Empire I thought was good. I mean, come on, he's got a great band. I mean, it should be good.
Well, as always, whenever I hang out with Don, he always speaks of your talents as well. So, which are many. So,
well, thank you.
Always has nice things to say about you.
Yeah, well, Don and I are fine. We're fine. I mean, I don't see him very often, but we have emails occasionally, and certainly if he walked in the door right now, we'd give each other a big hug and talk all night.
Excellent. All right, Jeff. Well, where can people find out about you on the internet? I'm sure you got some kind of.
Okay. Well, there's the slave-to-the-empire.com. There's Rat Pack Records where you can get the T&N record, and I highly advise going to the Rat Pack website to get the record. I mean, you can get it on Amazon and all that kind of, and iTunes by searching T&N. But if you go to Rat Pack, you get there's all sorts of special stuff you get with it. The head of the label has just come up with some great little packages of extra goodies that you get for ordering the record, and it's really cool stuff. He's doing a fantastic job, and it's really great. So I think that's ratpackrecords.com and slavetotheempire.com. And then you can Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. Follow me on Twitter. That's a great way of finding out what's going on too.
So basically, your day is 26 hours a day.
It's pretty nonstop. I start at 7 in the morning, and I'll probably be going till midnight tonight. So.
Excellent. Well, look at you. Well, Jeff,
yeah.
I appreciate you really taking the time out to talk to me here on the Classic Metal Show. And as I said before, you're always a welcome guest. I'm glad you are doing as well as you are and have so many avenues to go down, and staying busy and active, and it's all good.
Well, thank you, Wendell. It's really good speaking with you again, as usual. And, keep the torch going, man. You're doing great.
Well, 17 years in January, Jeff. 17 years.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Not close to your 30 years, but we're working at it.
All right.
All right, Jeff. Well, being that, the T&N thing is your latest, and that's what you're promoting, we'll let you pick a track and maybe tell us a story about it.
Well, I heard you say that you'd already played Slave to the Empire, so what I'm going to pick is a song called When Eagles Die, which is, for me, it's probably my favorite song on the record. It's a bit of an epic. I mean, this is one where we pulled out all the stops. But I think it's a beautiful song. It's talking about the loss of the American dream. We don't want it to happen, but sometimes it feels like that is happening, and it's just kind of me lamenting about it. But it's a great song with a great guitar solo by George Lynch. My God, his solo is beautiful on this song, as it is on on this entire record. But he really, really did. I mean, just. When he is on, my God, there's not a better guitar player in the world. And he really did. He just did a beautiful solo on this. So it's us having fun, getting out there.
Excellent. All right, the new CD is called Slave to the Empire from T&N, otherwise known as Tooth and Nail. Please don't sue me. And that's When Eagles...
You said it, not me.
When Eagles Die, exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show.